everybody, and welcome back to another episode of For the Love of Marketing. I'm really excited to have with me Matt Cross today, who looks after growth marketing over at Knotch. Fantastic business. You tell us, Matt, but it's some fantastic stuff you do around customer journeys. That's what we're going to talk about today, what the modern customer journey looks like. So don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to keep up with all the future episodes. But in the meantime, welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me. And yeah, Knotch is an exciting business. We have a customer journey intelligence software, and so we help other businesses understand the full customer journey. So we're getting into some really interesting stuff around identifying the missing middle of the customer journey and how to shorten that time to conversion.
Awesome. And more importantly, and surprisingly for me, you're currently in your chocolate shop, right?
That's right. My wife and I have a chocolate business, and so I'm in our chocolate shop this morning. Got to have some work to do. So we make bean to bar chocolate. So we source cocoa beans and we roast them and then grind them in big stone grinders into chocolate, because we realized that chocolate can taste better than what is out there right now. So
okay, well, I'm going to let you do a quick plug for where your shop is before we get into this. So go on, tell us where it is.
Yeah, we're in Tecumseh, Michigan, which is a small town southwest of Detroit, about an hour south of Ann Arbor. But more importantly, you can order online. So harvestcraftchocolate.com or just Google Harvest Chocolate, and we ship nationwide, in the U.S.
Awesome. It's super exciting, but we're going to move on because I'm on a diet and I cannot talk about chocolate for the next 10 minutes. That is too painful. So customer journeys, let's get into that. This is a huge and complex area, different for many businesses of all shapes and sizes. It can seem like a daunting thing for small businesses to really understand how consumers are moving around and where best to get to them, what channels, when to get to them. But especially within a large organization as well, where you may have more data and more people able to analyze and make decisions. You may have more money for platforms, for example. But still, in a larger organization, people can touch your brand in so many different places. It can be incredibly complex to understand. And I think that, combined with challenges around data privacy and constantly changing tech platforms and things in the space, makes it a tough one. So, let's start at the beginning. What does a customer journey look like today?
I always say it looks like a plate of spaghetti. It's not. It's not linear. There's no the marketing funnel is a great concept, but it's just people don't naturally move through it in that way. So what we see is just with customer journeys is that things that you're doing, different assets, different campaigns that are top of funnel or mid funnel are showing up throughout the customer journey. So they might, the last piece of content they might touch on your blog might be a real top of funnel piece of content, and then they convert. So, the complexity of the customer journey is, always been difficult. And even now more than ever, you need to prove that the marketing efforts that you're doing are tying to business outcomes. So that's where having, really being able to measure the customer journey and having a good measurement framework is more important now than ever.
I think, that's a great point to lead on to, right? Measurement has always been challenging, right? Attribution modeling obviously has been around for quite a long time now, and understanding which type of attribution model to use would be great. Tell us, let's take a step back. Let's assume that people listening maybe don't know that much about how to measure a journey effectively at the moment. Excuse me, my voice going on a Friday afternoon. Let's start with the basics. So how do you effectively measure this? How do you understand how people are moving in and out of various different channels and touch points and coming to you and disappearing and coming back? What's a sort of a good sort of rule of thumb for that?
I think the first thing to acknowledge is that you're never probably going to ever fully understand it. Anyone that claims to is never really, it's just too complicated. And there's, as you mentioned earlier, the data privacy and technology platforms changing and things like that. So you have to get a good kind of view across the business. So, at Knotch, we use a measurement framework. It goes from audience building to audience engagement and then pipeline creation. And so we've tied it to the bigger business outcomes of, revenue growth and things like that. But below those, we have various tactics that we use in each channel, part of the broader marketing strategy that roll up into those. And so we're looking at how more like at an aggregate level, how our audience is moving through their journey to us. So last year, we were really focused on audience building. We pivoted, launched a new product, targeted new persona. And so audience building was all we cared about. And now we're moving into audience engagement, looking at how are we getting the right people inside, actually engaging with us, coming to our events, engaging with our social posts. And then next we'll work into how are we going to take these now engaged audience and drive them to create pipeline.
Okay, so where do you start with that? I mean, I think it's a sensible journey, right? You want to build your audience, you want to get them to engage, and then you want to take action. Okay, great. That makes sense logically, step to step. But if you want to start out with building that audience, where do you begin? What's your advice on that?
So what we did, I think you need to start really always with just fundamentals, right? We had lots of conversations with, and this has led to the pivot, lots of conversations with our customers and potential customers. And they said, we need to tie our content to conversions. Like that's what matters to us right now. And then also just kind of the world around in different, job titles changed. And so we moved over that way and identified the right channel for where they are. So for us, those channels were largely LinkedIn. We use a podcast to just get more customer data and conversations and understand our customers better, which we use to, drive events and in-person events, virtual events, and then back to largely our website and LinkedIn with the content that we know our audience cares about.
Okay,
I think that's really it, is really understanding your pain points in your audience and then creating the content that they care about to, then they'll pay attention because it matters to them.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's right. For me, it's always about the understanding of the audience piece is always where to begin. Anything you're doing in terms of a solution for the audience is difficult to construct and solve a problem if you don't know what that problem is, right? That's really where you need to start. We're making the chocolate in the background there.
Yeah, sorry if you can hear that.
That's all right. Okay, cool. So you mentioned LinkedIn and some other channels there. Do you find that any of the particular channels that people might weave their way in and out of are any that are specifically better for engagement versus any that are better for conversion? I mean, if people are thinking about the journeys and where to prioritize effort or spend or people, is there a view from your mind as to where to effectively put those dollars to get the best return?
I mean, I love LinkedIn right now. I think it's almost like a all day 24/7 conference where you can get in front of people. And more importantly, I think you can get real-time feedback on the content that you're sharing. So, you can see that your target audience is liking what you said. And then there's that built-in kind of social proof of the audience that you're trying to target. And then somebody from that audience likes or comments and agrees with what you're saying. And then other people see that and it just starts to build from there. But there's a really high quality feedback loop built into LinkedIn right now that I really like. But that works for us.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes sense. And in a B2B world, I think LinkedIn can be extremely powerful. And when you're producing, let's focus in on LinkedIn a little bit. When you're producing content for LinkedIn, I mean, how do you know what's going to work? If someone's looking at their journeys and how they can bring people along that sort of next step of engagement, and they're thinking about what is it? What's the headline need to be? What's the blog or the article or the piece that I'm sharing need to be to drive that sort of engagement? Do you have any sort of key findings that people can take away there?
I think it's to start sharing content. If your business already has content, repurpose that blog post, repurpose that podcast, even just sharing links to them as a simple step. Start the kind of original content and is really what will ultimately drive the engagement that you want. But you have to start and see what's working. Sometimes you could have a post that does really, really well. And then you're like, okay, great. Like this is a topic that I should focus more on. And then sometimes you have one that doesn't. And so, stop talking about it. Like we build our content strategy is kind of based around months right now. And so, this month we're talking about organic social and paid social on LinkedIn. And then how do you tie that to a customer journey? Next month, it's how do you then take those people from paid social and organic social to the website? And so I just started talking about, we had used some B2B influencers, and I had talked about that process and put some numbers out last week, and it did really well. So I'm just going to keep talking more and more about that, more of actually like what I'm doing. And I find that that's what the content that does really well is like just the work that you're doing, talk about what you're doing. I take if I'm reporting on something to leadership, I'll just take that slide deck that I made and then turn it into a bunch of LinkedIn posts, and those things do really well for me. But it's just trial, just keep going. Take some time, but
repurposing is a great point. I think we're sort of stepping outside of the journeys a little bit, but naturally, when you talk about customer journeys, you touch on everything else. But I think within content strategy, repurposing is a big thing. And certainly at the moment, it's actually a lot easier now with some of the AI tools that are coming out. I don't know if you're using any of those at the moment, but the ability to produce a piece of content through AI, either to plan it or to structure it or to actually write it, which that latter part can be helpful, but can create just very generic content that's not great for SEO. But certainly it can help you with sort of production of some social content, things like that. But also being able to turn that content into an audio piece or into a video. These things are actually much easier now through AI than they've ever been. And they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination at the moment, but they can help you repurpose content in lots of ways. Have you been touching on that at all, or do you know anyone that has?
I've been digging deep into AI for repurposing content, mostly as a time saver. I was doing like a lot of creating video clips and editing the transcripts myself, and it just takes a lot of time. Whereas using AI, I think everyone jumps to having it create original content. I think the better use of it is to repurpose content. That's like the original content that you already made. So we have a podcast, we do a lot of webinars and things like that. And so we have a lot of smart people internally. And so I take that content and then use AI tools to break it into LinkedIn posts or videos for LinkedIn. And it just saves a ton of time is really it. You always have to go back, you have to go back and edit it. Don't trust everything that it says. You need to make sure that it's on brand and on message, and your brand voice is correct and all of that. But I found a couple of them that are pretty high quality in terms of repurposing content and saving a lot of time.
Which ones do you like? Which couple of you found?
I mean, I've been using ChatGPT a lot. Writer is really cool.
Okay.
Because it's built for B2B, and that's where I operate in. So there's a lot of controls built into of your tone and what kind of how you talk, and then you can feed it our own content, so it learns our brand voice over time. So that's been the biggest one I've been using lately.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's some good recommendations. I think probably everyone knows ChatGPT after the last few months. Probably the fastest growing tech platform ever, and they've done a phenomenal job. But I think there are many of them around. As I was saying, text to audio, text to video are great as well, and vice versa. So really great opportunity for people to use AI within their journeys as well. Do you use it for design at all? I mean, if you're thinking about images, we don't have to focus on AI entirely, by the way, but
I'm happy
not really
to.
the topic. But yeah, it's a good one. I mean, with design within journeys, what's your thought about that? Because if you're taking people on a journey, sometimes the images that they come across within those journeys can make them take an action or not take an action, or have a feeling or not have a feeling, and they can make a surprisingly significant impact. Have you done any tests or got any data around anything around imagery that's interesting for the audience?
So I've played with like I forget which one. It was an AI imagery tool, and the results were garbage. I couldn't get anything out of it. And one of the co-founders at Knotch used to run a design agency, and he just loves to do design, outside of his day job kind of thing. So I usually just use him. We use him a lot, but I think it's really important because it helps capture people's attention. It helps them understand maybe a more complex topic that is that you can draw out and show, and they can get it a little bit easier. You use colors to capture their attention or move them in a direction. So yeah, we've been using design a lot of kind of measurement. We have a great one around measurement frameworks and tying them into business outcomes that I post a lot on LinkedIn. Actually, I was just thinking this morning how I should just do that repeatedly, like put it on like once every 2 weeks. We're gonna share this, but same thing with just kind of like slideshows on LinkedIn has been really great lately. So we'll take like blog posts that we write and then take the 5 key points, shorten them, in 1 or 2 sentences, and then turn that into like 5 slides on a slideshow kind of thing. Yeah. And then so those same things too, we'll take and use in paid ads as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of thoughts for me on that one as well. I think on the social channels, especially on LinkedIn, when you're in the B2B field, you're adding very quick data points that people can just see that are fascinating, surprising, something that's going to cause some kind of reaction. It's not just, okay, yeah, there's another stat, but it's like, oh, okay, didn't know that. That's surprising. That's something under the bonnet. I think that is a great thing to do. And PowerPoint slides, charts, especially if you can, and there are several tools for this as well, if you can sort of animate those in some way, just so as they capture your attention as you scroll past, that's sort of really great visual infographic is really a really powerful thing to do. But then within the journeys themselves, when you're looking for conversion, I remember a case study from Google when I was at one of their events years ago now, a long time ago, and they were talking about a visitor to a software site, I think it was, and they found that people coming through weren't really clicking on the button that they wanted people to click on the homepage. So they took the main sort of focus image, the main hero image across the homepage of the site, and they changed that from a picture of the product to a picture of a person. And the clicks increase on the button because humans have better reactions to humans than they do to things, right? So then they made that person smile, right? And that created a slightly higher click-through rate because people prefer positive imagery, right? Then they made that smiling person a baby, right? Everyone loves babies, all right? They got a better click-through rate again. Then they made the baby look at the button, and then they got a better click-through rate again because it's directing you towards where they want you to click, right? So these sort of psychological elements you can play on with imagery also are really powerful. So grabbing someone's attention with a stat or an animation or an infographic is powerful. And then when you're in the journey, sort of driving them through positive messaging and signposting them is a great thing to do within imagery within conversion funnels as well.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of a really great story from a Knotch customer. This was like just as COVID was hitting, and they were a healthcare company. And they were talking about like, what do, if you're pregnant, like what should you expect? What should you do? And there was an image of a pregnant woman up on top. And we found that it was influencing just negative brand affinity. Mm-hmm. And so then they removed that image and I forget what they changed it to, but it immediately, the impact on brand started increasing. And we're able to show that through Knotch data of the wrong image can really, like if you're getting a lot of traffic to that page, can really have a negative impact on your brand.
Yeah. It really can. I think it's an important point to make because I find there are, certainly in my career in marketing, I found people tend to lean left brain or right brain generally. They're more scientific or they're more creative. And whilst a more creative person will not necessarily appreciate the science of that, they will focus on beautiful imagery. But a creative person needs to understand that there has to be a scientific process to whether an image is good or bad. It can't just be it looks nice or it doesn't look nice because that's subjective. On the flip side, scientific people tend to disregard images and just say, well, look, the button obviously needs to be bigger, or, we need to direct people more clearly through this page, or remove these distracting links over here. But actually, it can absolutely be down to the creative, and that's been the case in marketing for decades, if not centuries. So I think that understanding of the power of testing, I think, is the key message from both your story and the Google one that I mentioned. It's not everyone should put smiling babies looking at buttons on their website. That's not the takeaway notes. And the takeaway is absolutely that you need to test. You need to test every element, button colors and the imagery and how you're using it and the infographics and the animation point. Not only that, but the animation point, of course, can turn that piece into a reel from an image, right? And then suddenly you're going to get more engagement because the algorithms prefer that sort of stuff anyway. So there's a lot of benefits to those elements along the customer journey as well. What about timing? Yeah, if we talk about customer journeys, sometimes along that journey you need to prompt and send out messages, be they through social media or email or whatever. Do you find there are certain elements to when you should time a communication or the frequency of your communications within your journey or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about the next best audience action versus the next best audience action. So planning those journeys, right? So we pre-plan our journeys kind of when we're building a campaign of how we think people are going to move through them versus, and then we watch to see is that what our audience is actually doing? So that's kind of how we figure timing of what is that, kind of piece of content, or what's that question that your audience has in their mind that you need to answer to move them to the next stage. And always just kind of moving people along that way. And I'm just kind of thinking, as we were talking about images and sizes and things like that, of that journeys can break. And I don't think that people talk as much about the journeys can break in the middle, where if you're not giving them that right piece of content, or you're not even thinking of how do we do this, because a lot of times it's just a hypothesis, and then you need to watch how it operates. And so serving those wrong things to people at the time can break that journey, and then they may never continue on it. So that's how we think about timing and like the full campaign level.
Okay, great. So tell me about how do people get started with Knotch?
You can follow me on LinkedIn. That's always a great place. I share content every day there. So easy, low lift. We have a podcast called Pros and Content. That's fantastic. So we talk with growth marketers and demand gen leaders just about what they're doing in their day-to-day, how they're solving the problems. And other than that, come to Knotch.com. Check us out. We have some really great content around just the customer journey. And those are probably the best ways to get started with Knotch.
Awesome. Sounds good. Look, I think that's been brilliant, Matt. I think that's really helpful, really great conversation. There's so much that we've covered there in just a short space of time. I think, Knotch is a really powerful platform, and I would recommend people go and check it out, definitely. For me, within my business, we are constantly looking at customer journeys with many of our clients across the world, and how we need to deliver subscriptions or sales or leads across multiple platforms, and you're understanding the intricacies of how people move around. It's a really challenging job, and platforms like Knotch can play a major role in helping you deliver the best possible outcomes from that. So yeah, everyone definitely go in there and check that one out. And I think that's covered it. That's the masterclass done for today, Matt. Thanks. That was awesome.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Simon.
Pleasure. So thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of For the Love of Marketing. Cheers.